2026 annual budget, unless it is restructured as we propose to address the socio-economic challenges our country is facing. Honorable Speaker and members, even if the allocations in the budget were to address the socio-economic challenges, financing the budget through reckless borrowing will cause the country even more pain. To finance this budget, the NRM government wants to borrow 32.075 trillion because taxes, non-tax revenue and grants will only generate 40 trillion. The NRM government will then splash the taxes collected and borrowed money on luxury and distribute a big portion of it to President Museveni's friends. Moreover, the Constitution and Public Finance Management Act were not followed in preparation of this budget. I want to start with the sources of funds for the budget. The government intends to raise 34.051 trillion from taxes. It represents 47% of the total budget requirements. The government will also raise 3.246 trillion from non-tax sources, representing 4.4% of the total requirement. The taxes and fees correction together will give us 51.5% of the total amount of money we require to finance the budget. Our budget will also be financed by grants worth 2.745 trillion, which is 3.7% of our financial requirement. The rest, as I said earlier, 32.07 trillion, which is 44.3%, will be borrowed from foreign and domestic financial institutions. This is the physical deficit we face as a country. Madam Speaker, I have provided a table. I don't see it on the screen. I hope it can be summarizing what I have said. Tax correction is projected at 47%. Domestic borrowing, 21 trillion, 29.5%. External borrowing, 10.6 trillion, which is 14.7%, and grants, 2.7 trillion, which is 3.7%. And then non-tax revenue of 3.2, which is 4.4%. Who will lend us the 34 trillion? Minister of Finance on page 19 of the medium-term debt management strategy is warning Parliament that because of past global recessions, concessional lending has drastically reduced. Creditors are now focused on resuscitating their own economies. The biggest borrowing, 68% therefore, will be from domestic commercial banks and several other funds. Only 32% of the borrowing will be from institutions such as World Bank, IMF, ADB, and other international funds. Only 9% of the loans to be procured for budget will be on concessional terms. Only 9%. 6% at semi-concessional and 16.7% at non-concessional and commercial terms. This government committed to restrict non-concessional commercial loans to financing infrastructure and self-financing projects through on-rent agreements that have the capacity of generating non-tax revenue to enable debt repayment. It is now contracting non-concessional loans to fund recurrent expenditure. Remember, last financial year, the loan of $789 million in 2023. Overborrowing from commercial banks is crowding out the private sector and is increasing interest payment almost beyond our reach. This financial year, we are paying 9.4 trillion in interest, not 9.4%. It's 9.4 trillion in interest to commercial banks, mainly, and 1.8 trillion interest to foreign lenders. In the next budget, interest payment will consume, it is now 11 trillion. Minister of Finance notes that borrowing from foreign sources poses a great risk on our reserves. To be safe, the Minister of Finance notes, maturing foreign debt should be kept at a certain percentage of our reserves. Right Honourable Speaker and honourable members, reflect on the debt burden you are creating before you say aye to the budget. That's why a report on public debt, grants, guarantees, and other financial liabilities is and was tabled together with the budget. Approving the budget means you have given the government a green light to borrow 32 trillion to finance next year's budget. You have in a way lost the right to complain when the Honourable Museveni begins to vent on traffic loan requests to Parliament. Minister of Finance itself on page 8 of the medium-term debt management strategy is complaining against expenditure requirements, against realistic revenue projections, which is raising the fiscal deficit and leading to more borrowing. The medium-term debt management strategy was also presented to this House. Interest charged on the money we are borrowing has significantly risen, and our currency continues to depreciate. This, Finance is reporting, has increased the borrowing costs and worsened Uganda's debt burden amidst reduced foreign exchange reserves. Madam Speaker, I want my tables to be screened because I need to make some explanations. I am on...
Do you have that report captured?
I actually submitted this report early in the morning.
Please capture it.
Will URA really correct the 34 trillion, the basis of which you are approving this budget? To finance the budget, Uganda Revenue Authority has now been given a 34 trillion target next financial year. This year, this current year, the target was 29.3 trillion. The taxes will be corrected as follows. If the tables were there, then I will be summarizing and I don't have to read everything. Madam Speaker, as you have guided, I will continue reading, but when eventually the tables are presented, you'll allow me to go back and explain, because the reason I put tables is not to read too much. I was on page 4. I'll come back to that when it is uploaded. I hope it is not deliberate. I want to go to page 6. It begins with a table. Madam Speaker and honorable members, I was explaining on page 3 coming to 6 the inability of URA to hit targets for the last 5 years. I now go to budget performance on page 6. The last 2 financial years should guide us when considering a budget with exaggerated figures. In 2020 to 2023, this Parliament approved a total budget of 52.548 trillion. The actual money raised through taxes and borrowing was 43.4 trillion. Minister of Finance issued or warranted 49.226 trillion. In 2023-2024, revised approved budget was 61.669 trillion. 50.172 trillion was warranted, but the actual money corrected and borrowed was 48 trillion. On average, we have been raising just about 50 trillion to fund our budgets. This election year could even be worse. We need to approve a realistic budget of not more than 55 trillion at worst. The reason the government presents an obscene figure is because they want to raise their amount 3% that they are authorized by the law to spend without prior parliamentary approval, which they will give to Pineti and Amina and others, and then come here for approval after. I now want to go to page 7, which is the allocation of the budget. Let Honorable Speaker and other members, we hope you have already noted that we continue borrowing to pay loans. Next financial year, total borrowing is projected to be 32 trillion, of which 10 trillion is to clear maturing treasury bills and bonds. It is actually now 11, which finance likes to sanitize and call debt rollover. So the NRM government goes to a money lender and asks him to lend it to pay an old debt. We must bring this nonsense to an end. Next financial year, you have budgeted 11 trillion to pay interest on money borrowed, and only 6.5 trillion for development. This is crazy, honorable ladies and gentlemen, that your budget, the biggest portion is to pay interest and not development. The table, which I am not able to display, is giving you the summary of the budget. 38% of the budget is debt servicing, 11% is wage, non-wage is 41.1%, and government is just 9.1%. I now move to servicing public debt, which I have told you it will take 38% of our budget. And that's why we need to pay a lot of attention to this. 38% of our budget is debt servicing. In a report on public debt and grants read in Parliament on March 27th, total public debt is given on page 12 as 106.22 trillion as at December 2024. This, in our calculation, is 52.4% of the GDP, which is given as 202.7 trillion on page 3 of the budget framework paper. The government committed not to borrow beyond 52.4% of our GDP in the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. Approving this budget means you are allowing government to go against the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility, which will offend Section 12(6) of the Public Finance Management Act. The section states the annual budget shall be consistent with the National Development Plan, the Charter for Fiscal Responsibility, and the Budget Framework Paper. On page 9 of the report on loans, Minister of Finance observes there is a moderate risk of debt distress, mainly due to slow export growth and rising debt service burden, which amounted to 31.5% of revenue as of June 2024 and projected to stay above 20% throughout the medium term, mainly due to the cost of debt. Uganda has limited room to absorb economic shocks, meaning a significant economic downturn or a shock event could worsen its risk of debt distress. This is what the Minister of Finance says. To try to clear this huge debt, government has allocated 27.3 trillion, as I said, which is 38% of the total budget. And this is captured in vote 130. Interestingly, while 27.3 trillion is being allocated for debt servicing, we are seeking to borrow another 32 to fund the budget. 1 step ahead, 2 steps behind. We should at worst be borrowing less than what we are paying. You cannot repay 27 and then borrow 34. It means you are not paying. The table again, and that's why, Madam Speaker, it was important for these tables to be available. Chinese loans. China has become the biggest beneficiary of our debt servicing. This financial year, as at December 2024, we had paid China US dollar 178.744 million, equivalent of 679.2 billion. Of this 679 billion that we are paying to China, 212 billion is interest and 13.2 billion is commission and other fees. Currently, Uganda owes China 9.2 trillion. Only the World Bank with 18.3 trillion has lent Uganda more money. Chinese loans are very expensive. Look at the interest they are collecting annually. This parliament must discourage government from recklessly contracting Chinese and commercial bank loans. Again, there is a table to show you people who have lent Uganda money. I have said China is now number 2 at 9.2 trillion, and they are collecting almost $1 trillion from Uganda every year. So you come here to pass a budget, you think it is going to your constituency, it is actually going to China. Total domestic debt. The stock of domestic debt is given by Finance on page 23 of the report on loans and grants as 53.224 trillion as of December 2024. In the Treasury Operations Policy Statement, domestic debt is given as 51.7 trillion. This is mainly the money borrowed from commercial banks to finance our luxury lifestyle in the budget. Sometimes this government borrows money that is paid in 91 days. This is like ordinary people walking to a money lender. The South African banks are the biggest beneficiaries of this lending, especially Stanbic and Standard Chartered. These South African banks collect more than 9 trillion annually in interest from government. Please remember that out of the about 24 licensed commercial banks in Uganda, only 4 are owned by Ugandans. What government calls domestic borrowing is actually foreign external, because these domestic banks are foreign owned. And the list of these banks is given. So they tell you domestic borrowing, you walk to Stanbic and they take the interest to South Africa. I want you also, honorable members, to note, I am now on page 11. We have 27 trillion debt servicing. You need to know who are we paying. First, we are going to pay Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, for stolen gold, 247 billion. So this is what is in the budget, that we are going to clear our debt. So one of the beneficiaries is Democratic Republic of Congo, 247 billion for stolen gold. The 27.3 trillion includes 247 billion to Democratic Republic of Congo for raping Congolese women, looting its gold, diamond and timber, when General Tibuhaburwa ordered its invasion in 1998-99. The soldiers General Tibuhaburwa deployed were accused of rape, while senior commanders and other NRM.
Is a procedure matter.
Madam Speaker, Honorable Ssemujju is my shadow minister. Those days in the 90s, we didn't have a digital system. What Honorable Ssemujju is saying here is now being heard around the world. Recently, it was stated that there was a message that was circulated about the attack of Ugandan embassy. The Ugandan ambassador was summoned, and therefore a statement to be on record that Ugandans raped Congolese women is a very serious statement. Is it proper, isn't it proper that Honorable Ssemujju have this expunged from our record. Right Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, how do you feel when your country is full of rapists like you? Because it is you, the men, the rapists, including the person reading the report. How do you feel when your country is portrayed outside there as people, looters, rapists? Why don't we use a more civilized language? You can deliver, Honorable Ssemujju, you can deliver your message, but when you're using a very polite language, these people understand. You don't have to go vulgar and say all the men, including you and everybody, are rapists.
Madam Speaker, there is a ruling, a judgment. These words are in the judgment. They are not my words.
There was an
I don't know
appeal
where
to
the
that
Honorable
effect.
Ekanya lives.
There was an appeal to that effect.
There is no appeal. That's why we are paying. So if you only can allow me, I'll give you the
But
details.
let's be civilized for once. Let's love Uganda. Let's love Uganda. When you start bringing those words, do you love your country? How many people out there are listening to what we are talking about? Your
Okay.
report is good.
Let me change.
We love the figures.
Let me change and go to a language that is okay. I am now, because we are paying for three things. First, 225 million for damaged persons, including loss of life, serious bodily injury, sexual violence. Now I am not rape, sexual violence. Recruitment, and these are words as they appear in the judgment. Sexual violence, recruitment and deployment of child soldiers, and population displacement. The total that we are going to pay to Congo is 832 billion. The second item for which we are paying Congo is for damaged property located inside and outside Ituri. You can Google, those of you who have internet, just Google, you will find the judgment. I am not the author of the judgment. Maybe the Honorable Kanya, who is afraid of the international attention, you need to go to the International Court of Justice and tell them to delete and reverse the judgment. 60 million for damage related to natural resources,
Honorable,
including
can I have
gold.
something to say?
But
Honorable Speaker.
will I read the report?
No, Right Honorable Speaker, I have gone to the International Court. The decision between DRC and Uganda to arrive at that figure was settlement out of court. Because Uganda disputed some of the grounds. And the record is very clear. I don't know why the Attorney General cannot put the record clear. Because this is a very serious matter, Right Honorable Speaker. We have Ugandans who are trading in DRC. We have Ugandans trading in South Africa. Issues of cross-border and international relationship should be handled carefully. The payment to DRC was out of settlement, out of court settlement, because Uganda disputed some of those grounds. And the records are clear. I have read it. I have followed it. Is it order for the Right Honorable Ssemujju to allege that what he's stating is correct?
Honorable members.
No, we are paying for out-of-court settlement for
But Madam
Ugandan
Speaker, it is
forces
also unfair
entering
for
DRC.
someone who signed the minority report to stop someone reading a minority report. Because he signed his report he agrees with. So why does he want me to stop me?
Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Right Honorable. Right Honorable, I would expect that we stick to our rules, and the dissent minority report must be on dissenting issues.
Yes, not just
Issues of these judgments did not come up in the meeting.
yeah.
And of course, if it's already a judgment, as he says, then it's a sunk cost. It's irrelevant even to discuss it. You must allocate, and there is nothing to challenge about it. So let's discuss where there is a dissent
On figures.
on the figures on the matter.
You signed the minority report. You are the one who has tabled the minority report. Now you are saying it should not be read.
You know, the problem that our members have now, they are basically doing politics. But you're going to do politics at the expense of your country.
Madam Speaker,
And when you hear the chairman saying, yes, we have a 73 trillion, what are you dissenting on? What don't you want to be funded? And if you don't want to be funded, just say you don't want this borrowing.
Madam Speaker, I am a politician elected by the people of Chira. I am not one of those politicians who fear to do politics. I didn't come here to do medicine. I came here to do politics. Madam Speaker, our disagreement, I signed this report with two colleagues, the Honorable Karim
It's a
Masaba.
procedure matter.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I am raising on a matter of procedure with a lot of pain. My senior colleague, who is a veteran in this House, and hiding behind the issue of politics, seems to have derived a lot of fun and joy in destroying the reputation of this country. This House, every member of parliament in this House is part of government. Yesterday, the same speaker kept calling the matter this House, you people, and distancing himself from what happens in this House. We have a matter of collective responsibility. There are many things we don't agree with here.
2.7 million on bank accounts. On page 171 of the census report, UBOS reveals that only 2.7 million Ugandans own bank accounts. The bank account ownership gives a fairer picture of who really is working and is in money economy. Both government and private sector pay through banks and are required by law to remit workers' savings to NSSF or various pension schemes. If only 2.7 million people, which is 10% of the working age, own bank accounts, it means many Ugandans are casual laborers. Bank of Uganda, in a 2022 financial capability survey, found out that 49% of Ugandan employees are paid 150,000 and below. Those paid between 250 and 150 are just 33%. People who are paid $500,000, between $500,000 and 250 are 11.1. Those who are paid between $500,000 and $1 million are 5.7. The Ugandans who are paid a salary of more than 1 million are just 0.9% of the population. That is the money economy for you in our country. 28 million Ugandans still using firewood for cooking. According to UBOS, 28 million people are still using firewood as main source of energy for cooking. This is 32% of the country's population. This affects the environment adversely and a source of ill health. 89% of the population is using firewood and charcoal. In Karamoja, 56% are still cooking in open space. The chair who presented the report said this is the best budget. Of the 10 million households, only 25 are using electricity for lighting and 28 are using solar. 5 million Ugandans ride borders. According to UBOS, bicycles remain the main means of transport in the country. At least 20% of the population, roughly about 9 million people, own bicycles. 12%, 5.5 million, own motorcycles. 3.9, which is 1.8 million, own vehicles. What this means is that we are a border and bicycle economy. 14 million Ugandans in subsistence economy. According to the census, 3.5 million households, which is 33% of the total 10.6 million households in the country, are still engaged in subsistence economy. This is 14.8 million people. Just 2 pages and I finish, the rest are just UBOS. 62% of the entire population is in agriculture. This percentage means 28 million people are still surviving on agriculture. 5.6 million families share a room each, have no toilet. According to the census, there are 10.6 million households in Uganda. The average size of a household is 4.2 persons. According to the census, 53% of the households in the country sleep, 4 people sleep in one room. In Karamoja, it is even worse. It is 70% of the households that are sleeping in one room dwelling. So families have one room, that's where they sleep. According to the UBOS report, 7% of Uganda's population is without a toilet facility, still engaged in open defecation. Open defecation in Karamoja is at 60%, according to UBOS. World Health Organization underpins safe disposal of human waste as one of the key measures to reduce diarrhea transmission. Only 4.7 million households had improved sanitation facilities. As many as 6.5 million households are still using firewood. 20 million Ugandans food insecure. The Bureau of Statistics on page 356 of their report notes that 20 million Ugandans are moderately or severely food insecure. This is 4 people in every 10, representing 46% of the entire population. Again, Karamoja is worst hit, with 63% of the population suffering from food insecurity. It is followed by Teso. The chair of the committee is from Teso, the vice is from Karamoja. It is followed by Teso at 50% and Buked also at 50%. Also the reason is not very difficult to find. On page 332, UBOS reports that 98% of the country is still relying on rainwater for agriculture production. Irrigation is being undertaken only at 4%. Mind you, 62% of Uganda's population, or 20 million, are engaged and survive on agriculture. There was a proposal last year to buy and roll out 300 tractors to boost agriculture production. Mr. Museveni ordered this parliament to remove money for tractors. It had allocated last year, and you remember who we gave it to, Magora. The amount required for these tractors, 300 billion. The vice chair here was very happy that this is the best budget. You want 300 billion for tractors, they have provided 25. Very good budget. Last year, Parliament had also allocated 60 billion to complete construction of health centers. The list, you still have it. President Museveni forced Parliament to instead allocate this money, as I said, to Magora. He has now restored only 25 billion. You have, they can buy a regional referral hospital. No window, nothing. Almost 95% completed. You can't find money to complete it. And then you come here and say this is the best budget. For you, from Mbari, if it is the best, I thank you. I am finishing. This is the last. Our recommendation is that don't approve the budget until it is structured to deal with the country's socio-economic challenges. The money for workshops, entertainment, travel, fuel, etc. should be reallocated to education, health, agriculture, and roads. You are accosting the Minister of Works here. He doesn't have money, 900 billion to buy fuel for government vehicles, and then they begin moving around as if they are touring the country. The final pages are just staff. I don't have to read them. Staff of our dear president, including cooks, gardeners. But I have also put the staff of Mulago Hospital for you to appreciate that the National Referral Hospital operates at 49%. Our view, since the law says that the budget should be passed by 30th of May, is for you to reject this particular budget. We go back and restructure it to deal with those issues that are affecting our people. If you don't, you will have betrayed them. I want to thank you very much, honourable members, for listening to me, and Madam Speaker.
Honourable members, you've heard the minority and then the major report. Yes, Honourable Silas.
Right, Honourable Speaker, I want to thank...
And honourable members, I want to remind you, you debated this report when you brought BFP and ministerial statements, and I want you to be sensitive that we must handle this process and finish. I'm giving you just 1 minute.
Right, Honourable Chair, thank you for the 1 minute. I chair the Watch Forum. My concern is about the so many villages in Uganda without even a single water source. The budget committee needs to provide money for that.
Thank
Two,
you.
we know, today we had a meeting with the Intoroko and the Bundibujo districts. Those areas are prone
Did you take
to
those
disasters.
issues? Did you take them to the sectoral committee and the budget committee?
Madam Chair, we already talked about them, but I'm emphasizing. So those districts need to be helped with the piped water. They don't have ecos and toilets. And yet when it floods, the area floods, they cannot support themselves with good toilet systems.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. My concern with the budget is the allocation that has been given to cattle compensation, which has considered only Teso, Lango, and Acholi. Bukedi, I wanted to ask, Bukedi has not been considered, and these issues lingering around Bukedi. I'm wondering why they consider only those ones, and yet they consider them they have been considering them in other budgets. We expected the other regions also to be included.
Thank you. The presidential pledge on Teso, Lango, and Acholi. Goretti.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. I thank the Chair for the main report, but I'm in support of the minority report that we give time for this budget to be restructured. Right Honourable Speaker, my main concern is about domestic arrears. An allocation of 1.4 trillion versus a 15 trillion. And for the Minister of Works alone, the Minister of Works has a 1.7 trillion arrears. So, Right Honourable Speaker, I beg that we revise on the figure of domestic arrears, not to frustrate the private sector. Number two is about the 60 billion allocation to ROCO. Right Honourable Speaker, I request that we refer payment or allocation of that money, because the Auditor General in his report made the recommendation that the PSST should stay any allocation to private companies till when we get a right framework on how to give bailouts to private companies.
You.
Right Honourable Speaker, lastly is the issue of about the RDCs. Right
We will not do reallocation in the House. That's why we had all the time to go to the sector committee, to the budget committee on those issues. But Honourable Minister, take note of what the member is raising. Santa. Ole Oduru. After Santa, Duru. Ole.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable. Right Honourable, I think our problem as a country is cutting the coat, which is so big for our size. Madam Speaker, the budgeting is about the amount of money we expect and how we are going to spend it. Yesterday, the Minister of Works was here crying for money. And Madam Speaker, I think this is the right time that we have to provide the Ministry of Works with money to work on our roads, because that is the foundation of everything. Secondly, Right Honourable Speaker, the issue of giving money or bailing individuals like Rocco, Penetti, and the rest. Right Honourable Speaker, we are having money, inadequate money for the PDM. Why can't we use this money to address some of these challenges whereby the majority of Ugandans don't have money to expend, and we are giving money to few individuals, Madam Speaker?
Thank you. Honourable members, by the way, I want to invite you people to go and see Lubwa Hospital. We are about to open. Yes, Lubwa Hospital is almost. I am going to go to Lubwa Hospital with the leader of opposition. We are going to visit it. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when we discuss the budget, we don't only discuss the figures, but we also discuss other issues that inform the budget.
Please do.
So for that reason, first, I want to fault the government budget strategy. We are so good at coining terminologies,
full monetization. Full monetization supposedly means that when you go, you find people with money, full in their pockets or in their banks or somewhere. But what do you find in Uganda? Full poverty. You say higher income at household level. The budget strategy. What do you find at household level? From the UBOS report, people are more poor. You talk about market access, but we are here crying about people who can't sell their sugarcane, can't sell their tea, can't sell their milk. So the first issue is, are people in government really thinking, or they just go to the dictionaries and pick words and then they give the minister to come and present here? These are the realities we have to check. Secondly, if you are talking about now the strategy itself, agro-industrialization and tourism, I want to fault government for thinking that tourism is national parks, tourism is watching animals. When we apply for visas to visit some of these countries, which visa do they give you? A tourist visa. If there is a place in Uganda that requires support for tourist development, it is Kampala. Because everyone comes to Kampala for a visit. It is the urban centers that we have. So the facilities within the urban centers where people come to see. In Lira, for example, Lira City, we have tourists who come from Agago. We have tourists from Abim who come on a daily basis to visit Lira and they go back. And there are so many tourists who come to Kampala for this visit. So the point I'm raising is we should depart.
What is it? No, let
Thank
him
you,
let
the
him
Right Honourable Speaker.
Honourable Agago, let him
Madam
finish
Speaker,
his.
Madam Speaker, I come from Agago.
Can you, Honourable Duru, can you finish? It's a tourist. We are all tourists. Even me, I'm a tourist in Kampala. Yes. We are all tourists.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I want to pick up the issue, for example, of coffee. We are investing a lot to process our coffee, but if you don't develop the internal capacity, the market, to buy coffee, even to see a developed country, you see with the amount of intake of coffee they do. I've just learned recently that Ethiopia, which is ahead of us, for example, consumes 50% of their coffee production. But for us, we consume less than 10%. So the coffee we make, 90% is for export. So the point I am making is, even when we think of agro-industrialization, we should think whether we have the purchasing power, whether we have developed the capacity to be able to deal with that. The third one, briefly, is about the economic pillars. Unemployment, balance of trade, debt to GDP ratio, our reserves, etc. In Uganda, if a government advertises for a job, people are more attracted to work for the government than for the private sector. I can give the example of lawyers. The amount of lawyers applying to join to be grade 1 magistrates, senior lawyers, shows you that the economy is collapsing. A developing economy, the one growing, as stated by government, is the one that attracts more into the private sector employment.
Thank you. I thought you had finished. Okay.
So lastly, I want to point out that this entire budget is a corruption-led budget. The Honorable Ssemujju has done good justice in pointing out the areas. When you examine the items proposed to this parliament for financing, and he listed them, donations, corporate social responsibilities, and etc., it's just money we are passing for people to enjoy. I would rather support that these monies are allocated, for example, in education sector. If you go to Kwarikwar sub-county in Bukedea.
Kwarikwar is okay. Don't put it there. We have no problem.
Yeah, just because we are
provided. No, we don't have a problem.
Because now we are provided for it.
No, we don't have a problem in Kwarikwar.
Okay, let me now mention another one.
You say in Otuke?
Okay, no, I don't know about Otuke, but in Etek, in Uyudek, we don't have seed secondary schools. So my proposal is we go back and review.
Dr. Yume.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. In 2023, we passed a very good bill called the Uganda Human Organ Donation and Transplant Bill. And I think it's one of the best, and I thank Parliament and His Excellency for assenting to the bill. Right Honorable Speaker, for the last 3 financial years, we have not provided any money for organ transplant. And what we need is 5 billion shillings. I'm sure most members of parliament are called to fundraise for constituents or their beloved ones to take to India and Turkey at $30,000. So the limitation is 5 billion shillings, Right Honorable Speaker. And the 120 Ugandans case backlog who need kidney transplant will be able to get a service. Mulago is ready. Zambia Hospital is ready for liver transplant.
Dr. Rionga, Honorable Nzima.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Also, I would like to appreciate the Chair and the committee for the report. Right Honorable Speaker, in our sector, we have very many uncompleted stalled structures. Some have spent 3 or 4 or 5 years. And some of these contractors, they have put in their monies. And they want to sue the government for non-payment. And also, we are going to host AFCON in Hoima. But we have a ward which was demolished with the promise of constructing another one. The contractor they got the contractor, and we have 1.15 billion. We requested the committee.
I hope we are not going into constituencies.
This is the regional referral hospital for 8 districts. And we are going to host AFCON. We had requested, we have 1.15 billion.
AFCON has its money, and for working on the services around the hospitals, the roads, and whatever. So, Doctor, that one is catered for. It's catered for. Yes. Honorable Nzima.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to talk about one of the items to achieve the budget strategy, which is commercial agriculture. Commercialization of agriculture. I think one of the intentions to commercialize agriculture was to produce on large scale. And this goes with distribution of tractors. Whereas, as my colleagues had said, many times we come up with statements that we are going to do commercial agriculture, but when we look at our actions in terms of allocation to those areas, they did not match with our statements. Our government had, in the last budget, intended to give out tractors per sub-county. But since last year, Feb, what happened was giving only 1 tractor per district. And this one for districts near West Nile, Acholi, and Lango.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam. Let me conclude that statement. This 1 tractor per district were given without the disc plows. For 1 year, they are there. Instead of giving...
The tractor was given without the plows.
Yes, they were giving without disc plows. For 1 year, we have been making noise on this floor of Parliament. And yet here, when it comes to budget, we are saying commercialized agriculture is one of our strategies. But when we come to allocations...
The Minister of Agriculture is here. We will make a follow-up on that.
So my conclusion is that, Madam Speaker, I think that original intention by government to give tractor per sub-county, that should be maintained. And we should move towards achieving that. But when Honorable Ssemujju was presenting, he said, though the planned figure was supposed to be 300 billion, this is being brought back to, downward to 20 billion. So do we really mean what we speak or what we plan? That's my question to government.
Thank you. The Minister wants to respond to you immediately.
Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, the question of plough has been explained several times here in the House. The supplier supplied tractors less ploughs because they are defective. We corrected, and the supplier is due to supply, I think, early next month.
And you will get your ploughs and the tractors. Jennifer?
Madam Speaker, thank you. There's the Climate Smart program in Uganda, where 69 districts have been considered, especially the refugee hosting districts of Koboko, Yumbe, and so on. and Marata being a neighbor of these districts, it was considered in the program. And surprisingly, Madam Speaker, Marata has been left out during the identification of the focal point person. And I would like to request that this be addressed, because I wrote to the PS and since then no reply. I thank you.
Thank you. I want to request you people, let's not look at individual constituencies. It's a national budget. Lob.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the Committee of Budget for the report on the proposed annual budget 2025-2026, but particularly the Honorable Ssemujju for being spot on, and I have nothing useful to add. Apart from, Madam Speaker, reminding the House that in 2022 November, this House approved a World Bank funded project, rural electrification project, called the Electricity Access Scale Up Project 1775. Madam Speaker, it targeted over 1 million connections. As we talk, rural electrification, for those of us who have constituencies in a rural setting, have stalled. Thank you. But in the budget on page 32, we have another good project on Oreo mini hydro power plant. I don't want to downplay the importance of this off-grid power plants. But the truth of the matter is the urgent need that the country, that we have to unlock that amount of money, that whooping 345 billion that is meant for the project, and Uganda, on its part of the bargain, is supposed to merely raise 21 billion for counterpart funding to pay or rather compensate the project affected persons and to acquire the waivers. The budget committee has allocated, or government and finance has allocated 26 billion to Oreo mini hydropower plant. Couldn't you consider reallocating merely 20 billion to unlock, this is an urgent need, to unlock this 345 billion for rural electrification operations to resume? Madam Speaker, I would have loved to proceed, but this is a very important keen observation that I've made in the main report, which is a universal
law.
Honorable Speaker, I want to appreciate the colleagues that have presented. Even the one who I don't agree with, it is okay to appreciate them. Honorable Speaker, government came up with a strategy called BUBU, Buy Uganda, Build Uganda, and it has tried to actualize it. How? By contracting local businesses to do work. But here is the problem, right, Honorable Speaker. Domestic areas, as by the end of financial year 2023-2024, 13.8 trillion shillings. These are businesses that have done work for government, and government just does not want to pay them. These businesses borrow money from banks after they've gotten a contract from government, and so they use that to go to the bank as guarantee, I will pay you your money. And they get bank loans. Government doesn't pay, and these businesses are collapsing. I don't know why. I don't know why government does not prioritize this. You see, part of the challenge is because government, Ministry of Finance, does not even like to consider this as part of debt. The other time we were having an exchange here with Honorable Musasizi, because for him he's convinced this is not part of debt. But you see, if somebody does work for you, you have not paid them 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, that is money you owe them. In simple English, that is a debt. So maybe that's why you're not paying it, because you don't think it is a debt, and I don't know why. Honorable Speaker, we are giving free money to many of these companies, free money. Atiak, Day Biopharma, Rocco, Inspire Africa, Coffee Factory, and so on and so forth. But we don't want to pay those who have availed services to government. I don't see how that makes sense. You're giving free money to some companies. You're saying, well, they're about to collapse and so on. But these ones render the service to you as government, and you don't want to pay. We need to reprioritize, honestly speaking. The excuse that we keep hearing, that you see these accounting officers, they overcommit government. The person who has rendered the service is not to blame. You punish your accounting officers who are overcommitting you, but pay the people who have signed contracts with government. That should not be their problem. You cannot tell them, you see, accounting officers are overcommitting government, so we are not going to pay. But whose problem is that? That's why you made them accounting officers. So they operate on your behalf. And so to the other person who is having a contractual obligation with them, for them they've got a good contract. So you punish your accounting officers if they're overstepping their bounds. But can we pay the people that we owe? Honorable Speaker, these companies, the private companies that have been given free money, Atiak Sugar Factory, 563 billion, Day Biopharma, 723 billion, Rocco, 263 billion, Inspire Africa Coffee Factory. In fact, that one, when we went to eat, the proprietor said he did not know the exact figure, which shocked me. Because government has been giving you billions of shillings. We put him to task, he said, I don't have the exact figure. I found that to be odd. Honorable Speaker, the Attorney General, my friend, Senior Counsel Chiriwa Chiwanuka, promised here a couple of days ago that he is going to avail all documentation pertaining to these monies that were given to these companies. Because for some of them, government said we have purchased shares. So we said, where are the share purchasing agreements? For some, of course, when you to do that, there must be a chief government valuation report. The Attorney General promised that he's going to bring those documents here. Where are they? Last year, Right Honorable Speaker, when we were debating the issue of Day Biopharma, you, Right Honorable Speaker, told the House that no, let's pass this money. Afterwards, government will bring the agreement, because our concern was that, number one, there is no agreement. Number two, you've not valued the company. How do you buy shares in a company that you have not valued? And then they came here to us and said, let's pass the money. And we pleaded with you, Right Honorable Speaker, and said, let's not put the cart before the horse. You said, no, the money can be passed. The agreements will be obtained. Where are those agreements? Because we actually objected to that idea. You don't do this first. You don't first avail the money. So what happens if the valuation turns out that actually the company is less valuable than you thought? That's a problem. I hope that the Attorney General can make good the promise that he made.
No.
Honorable Speaker, as I begin to wrap up, I'm glad you've talked about Lubowa Hospital and you have promised to go with me.
I'm actually going with you.
Because the last time I went, I was denied access. The last time the Minister of Health, who is supposed to supervise that project, was denied access.
Honorable Lob,
yes, right.
It was dangerous for you because the construction was still at the...
Oh, really?
The debris would fall on you, but now that we are in the final stages, we can go.
Actually, Right Honorable Speaker, it's more dangerous now because they are putting up a shell. The other time there was nothing. So there was no debris going to fall on me and my colleagues. But anyhow, Honorable Speaker, we have injected now 774 billion shillings into Lubowa Hospital project. You see, as we kept complaining, they began to put up a shell structure. And when you're passing by the road, you can see a structure there. But Right Honorable Speaker, this 774 billion shillings has got to be fully accounted for. I hope that there will be an audit, because that shell structure cannot account for 774 billion shillings. So we need to do a proper audit. I am glad you're saying we are going to pay a visit there. I hope they will not tear gas our speaker. Those people are not easy.
No, they will not.
But importantly, Right Honorable Speaker, we need to order an audit. 774 billion shillings. What has it done thus far? Because that is money that has gone. Each time they come here, they ask for more money. Money for supervision, money for what? Can we have a proper audit of this money? Finally, Right Honorable Speaker, our parliamentary chambers, the new ones being constructed across. Each time there's a contentious issue like there's going to be in the coming few days, this place will be full. People will be sitting on each other's laps and so on, because of the holding capacity here, which is too small. And so there's been a plan for the last couple of years to build chambers, new chambers there, and offices. Honorable Speaker, it concerns me that Parliament pays plenty of money on an annual basis to rent space, office space for members of Parliament, for staff, in buildings that are neighboring Parliament here. Because there's not enough space here for all the 500 plus MPs and the numerous staff that we have. And yet, ROCO, which has continuously been given free money, in addition to that it is paid for the work that it ought to be doing, has not delivered.
The High Court. We appeal High Court decisions in the Court of Appeal. So when you go to the High Court to check whether this case is there, because it was concluded by the judge, it does not appear in the schedule of the matters in the High Court. So if you want to find out whether we appealed, you go to the Court of Appeal and find out whether there is an appeal there. However, colleagues, if the salary is supposed to be increased, and I'm not saying the salary of police officers should not be increased, what I'm asking for, colleagues, let's do it properly. And that's what we said the last time. We left the administrative aspect to the Ministry of Public Service to do that properly. However, if we leave this precedent on the record, colleagues, it will not be good for government. So let the public service handle the administrative aspect of dealing with the salaries of police officers, which they are doing. And let us handle the issue of the legal aspect. I'm just requesting that you allow us to do our work. Thank you.
We need to harmonize the salaries of all civil servants. Lob has a clarification. We need to harmonize them, including for members of Parliament. Lob has something.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable.
Okay, Lob has allowed him.
Thank you,
young Lob.
My leader. Lob. Right Honourable Speaker, as we talk about the issue of policemen, we also have an issue of police armed officers who returned from Somalia. Since December, they have never received their salary, so we should also include them. That's
Yes.
what I wanted to say.
We'll look at all of them. Let's look at all of them. Public service should actually look at all the institutions.
Honourable Speaker, I think we need to help these government workers called police officers, because they don't even know where to run. I understand when the Attorney General says public service should be handling matters to do with salary. The challenge is there was an enhancement which they began to receive. Along the way, it is cut off. And so they are in confusion. They did go to court. The Attorney General says he has appealed, and there's been a bit of confusion about that. Maybe they don't want to give us the exactness of the details, because notice of appeal, the lack of it, and all of that, even away from the legalese, Attorney General, because if we go that direction, then people are going to suffer. How do we assist these government workers? Because they got a salary enhancement. All of a sudden, you have cut it off. So the legalese and so on, and yet they are also saying, as far as the law is concerned, they are on the right path. How do we remedy this situation? Because it is the same government that enhanced the salary. So it cannot be the same government to come and say that maybe we made a mistake. I don't think that does apply. You know, it's resemblant. We had a debate here about the teachers. Science teachers vis-a-vis the arts teachers. Science teachers earn about 4 times more than the arts teachers. And some of us have been saying, we are not saying that now reduce the salary of the science teachers, because they deserve a good pay. But increase the salary of the arts teachers too, so that there is equity. So what we want now is for government to rectify something that it had already done right, because they deserve a good pay. And we were happy that government had enhanced their pay. All of a sudden now, government is retracting on that. Why? So that we don't even go through court, back and forth, because you see, even with the court processes, the AG knows this matter can take donkey's years. We are simply appealing to government. Please rectify. You enhanced these people's salaries. That was a good thing. Because they have been to school, you keep saying, the more you study, there should be rewards for education. So they have gone to school, studied this and so on, you enhance their pay, and then you're cutting it back. Why? Let government rectify that, so that we even avoid the whole drama of court, back and forth. That will take donkey's years, AG, you know. Please advise government, because you're the chief government advisor. And chief legal government advisor. Yes, when you make a promise and you fulfill it, don't backtrack on it. Let's get back to what it should be.
And as you give the legal advice to government, I think the matter that this House has talked about, the Salary Review Commission, should really come in forth. Because we've been talking about that commission over and over, and it has not taken off. Yes, Honorable Silas.
Right Honorable Speaker, related to those aspects of salaries to the police, there is something that I got to learn of recent, that even money that we are supposed to be giving DPCs for fuel, of recent, they were budgeting it at 2 million. These days they have cut it down. That's what I've learned. Down to 1 million. This month it comes, next month it doesn't come, 3 months it's not there, 1 month it comes, and I would request through your seat that you ask the minister responsible to come and give a statement on this matter, because the work of police is so critical to our future. Madam Speaker, the members of parliament should not be the ones funding the running of police. Let government do what it's supposed to do. We are even at the point that we are discussing a police matter, and the direct minister who is supposed to be responding to our questions is not there. That minister, I'm aware, is having more than 3 ministers. There is nobody to respond to us. We are nearly speaking to ourselves. Right Honorable Speaker, this is the pain that we take sometimes in this house. It is painful. I beg to submit.
Thank you. Elijah Goretti, Christian.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to thank Honorable Opendi and the members who have spoken to this. This matter must be taken seriously. We have seen of recent how policemen have been committing suicide. Others have been robbing the places they are guarding. Others have killed their wives. This could be possibly the reason. Yeah. They even killed the minister. So we shouldn't take these things lightly. But you can't joke with the person who is holding the gun. I think that's where government must come up seriously and solve this. Prime Minister needs to be solved. Thank you.
Goretti. Christine.
Right Honorable Speaker, as the Deputy Chair Park Central, I want to remind colleagues that the Office of the Auditor General did a very good job on a consolidated payroll on the consolidated report on the payroll. We also have a consolidated report on pension and gratuity. However, the challenge we have is, if you look at the performance of the Treasury Memoranda, all the resolutions and recommendations of Parliament are implemented at 31%. How I wish Cabinet can take interest in the implementation of the Auditor General's report in regard to the consolidated payroll. There are so many issues even beyond what you are looking at, so many in different sectors. So let's not handle this in piecemeal. I do take concern of the police officers, but there are so many things that are messed up. So, Right Honorable Speaker, I kindly request that you give a deadline on when we should handle the consolidated report purely on the payroll and gratuity and pension. Otherwise, people are suffering out there, many of them.
Just remind you, she's a deputy chair. Vice Chair.
Right Honorable Speaker, I also add my voice to the armed officers who are demanding payment, especially those who came back from Somalia between 15th to 25th December. They said they belong to the battalion of the 39th Battalion. I am not good at that, but they communicate to us that way. But Right Honorable Speaker, I pray that we also get a pronouncement on the institutions that were rationalized by Parliament and were not approved by the President, especially the Forest and Tree Planting Act. What is in the community is that all staff that were contracted under NFA were laid off. They were told that the institution was rationalized, but in actual sense it has not been rationalized. It still has its money, and so we need to come out clearly on this and clear the air. If the President has not consented to this, let's come out and inform the public and confirm that the budget of that institution still exists and should do the work that was assigned to it. I thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Dorcas. Rosemary.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, while
Madam Speaker.
I'd like to thank the Attorney General so much for the information that he has given, stating that they are working on the issue of the police officers, together with the Minister of Public Service. We are so much concerned about the deadline.
There's a procedure matter.
I'm sorry to interrupt my colleague, but the procedure issue I am raising, we have colleagues one by one raising issues of soldiers who are returning from Somalia. We have 10 UPDF officers. 5 of them are here. We are talking about matters of their colleagues who they came to represent. They are quiet. What are they doing here? 5 of them, they came here to represent the army. It is other people talking about the problems of their colleagues. That's the procedure issue I am.
As members of Parliament, we represent all the people irrespective of whether they're in uniform. We are representatives of the people. So even if a member of Parliament raises it, he's still speaking for the people outside there.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I was talking about the issue of timeline. Yes, I know we have police officers out there, and for me, the fact that the category of people we are talking about, and I would like to thank Honorable Ssemujju for that procedural issue. For us, we felt so sad when not so long ago we lost the late Honorable Machu Duogo over the same issue.
Put the microphone a bit down.
And therefore, I would like to request that Attorney General should give us a timeline. When he's saying that they are working on this issue, public service is working on the issue, our people out there are so much concerned and would like to be comforted when we can hear about the timeline of when should we expect that this issue will be sorted. Thank you.
Thank you, Shema.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. And I want to thank you for advising government to harmonize wages for civil servants across board. Right Honorable Speaker, my concern is about teachers. We are sitting on a time bomb. Wherever you go, teachers, the arts teachers are discriminated. And they're like, what are our members doing? And to avoid this thing, I want to call upon government and even us as members of Parliament that, yes, much as we don't have enough resource, let's look into this issue of teachers, because our children are going to be half-baked. They are demoralized, and I understand, by the way, that they want to come up with a very, very strong strike. And when teachers strike, at the end of the day, it is our children that suffer. I think it is something that we should look into so that they are all handled
all civil servants are handled, including members of parliament, so that harmonization of wages and salaries is dealt with once and for all. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Government, we need harmonization of salaries, wages across the board. You've heard they are talking about police, army, and all the other civil servants, and we need a salary review commission.
Right on. You boss. 62% of the entire population is in agriculture. This percentage means 28 million people are still surviving on agriculture. 5.6 million families share a room each, have no toilet. According to the census, there are 10.6 million households in Uganda. The average size of a household is 4.2 persons. According to the census, 53% of the households in the country sleep. There's 4 people sleep in one room. In Karamoja, it is even worse. It is 70% of the households that are sleeping in one room dwelling. So families have one room. That's where they sleep. According to the UBOS report, 7% of Uganda's population is without a toilet facility, still engaged in open defecation. Open defecation in Karamoja is at 60%, according to UBOS. World Health Organization underpins safe disposal of human waste as one of the key measures to reduce diarrhea transmission. Only 4.7 million households had improved sanitation facilities. As many as 6.5 million households are still using firewood. 20 million Ugandans food insecure. The Bureau of Statistics on page 356 of their report notes that 20 million Ugandans are moderately or severely food insecure. This is 4 people in every 10, representing 46% of the entire population. Again, Karamoja is worst hit, with 63% of the population suffering from food insecurity. It is followed by Teso. The chair of the committee is from Teso, the vice is from Karamoja. It is followed by Teso at 50% and Bukedu also at 50%. Also the reason is not very difficult to find. On page 332, UBOS reports that 98% of the country is still relying on rainwater for agriculture production. Irrigation is being undertaken only at 4%. Mind you, 62% of Uganda's population, or 20 million, are engaged and survive on agriculture. There was a proposal last year to buy and roll out 300 tractors to boost agriculture production. Mr. Museveni ordered this parliament to remove money for tractors. It had allocated last year, and you remember who we gave it to, Magora. The amount required for these tractors, 300 billion. The vice chair here was very happy that this is the best budget. You want 300 billion for tractors, they have provided 25. Very good budget. Last year, Parliament had also allocated 60 billion to complete construction of health centers. The list, you still have it. President Museveni forced Parliament to instead allocate this money, as I said, to Magora. He has now restored only 25 billion. You have, they can buy a regional referral hospital. No window, nothing. Almost 95% completed. You can't find money to complete it. And then you come here and say this is the best budget. For you, from Mbale, if it is the best, I thank you. I am finishing. This is the last. Our recommendation is that don't approve the budget until it is structured to deal with the country's socio-economic challenges. The money for workshops, entertainment, travel, fuel, etc. should be reallocated to education, health, agriculture, and roads. You are accosting the Minister of Works here. He doesn't have money, 900 billion to buy fuel for government vehicles, and then they begin moving around as if they are touring the country. The final pages are just staff. I don't have to read them. Staff of our dear president, including cooks, gardeners. But I have also put the staff of Mulago Hospital for you to appreciate that the National Referral Hospital operates at 49%. Our view, since the law says that the budget should be passed by 30th of May, is for you to reject this particular budget. We go back and restructure it to deal with those issues that are affecting our people. If you don't, you'll have betrayed them. I want to thank you very much, honourable members, for listening to me, and Madam Speaker.
Honourable Member.